All right, folks, there it is. The bell ringing on Broad and Wall, the corner of Broad and Wall. Beautiful building, by the way, Wall Street. Market's closing. Take a look at the numbers as we speak. Dow was up a little bit, up 117 points. NASDAQ down a little. Well, it's a little bit different. I have up a touch on the NASDAQ and up a little bit more in the Dow. Gold holding above $3,200 an ounce. Oil kind of flat. But Bitcoin is the interesting play here. Bitcoin has been all over the board lately with the markets gyrating up, down. Bitcoin just continues to move up. Bitcoin, $105,500 to the Bitcoin. Those of us who are along Bitcoin are loving that. All right, folks. This weekend, there was a lot of breaking news, but the one thing that really stood out was the breaking news that former President Joe Biden has been diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer that's metastasized, meaning it has moved to the bone. It's moved, and metastasization means when it moves, it's typically a stage 3 or stage 4 cancer, meaning more aggressive. To give us some insight is Chief Medical Board Member of the Wellness Company, Dr. Drew Pinsky. Welcome to Dr. Drew. Really good to have you back on the show, Doc. Also an internist for many, many years, University of Southern California, if I'm not mistaken. Doc, tell us about this Gleason 9 metastatic. I think everyone understands now it's an aggressive form. What we're all focusing in on, Doc, is when did they really know? Did they really just find out about it now? But take it away. I'm sure you've been asked this question today.
Well, I'm a prostate cancer patient. I'm on the board of the Prostate Cancer Foundation. I know a lot about this illness. I've treated it for 40 years. And when I saw them say, hey, we found a nodule, already my spidey sense was up because we really don't do the digital rectal exam anymore. We follow the PSA. And we found this nodule and, oh my goodness, he's got metastatic disease. I thought, no, it does not pass the sniff test. This has been going on for a long time. There's no doubt about it. Only 2% of prostate cancers present in this sort of an advanced stage. And that's primarily in people who haven't been getting regular health care. He's been getting health care on a regular basis. I'm sure he's been getting his PSAs. And what's fascinating about this, well, there's two sides to this. One is the scandalous side where we're being lied to, minimized, and gaslit about what this man's condition is. But on the other, if indeed he was diagnosed, say, a couple of years ago, and he has metastatic disease, he would be subjected to something called androgen deprivation therapy. That's the treatment for his condition. And they're trying to avoid saying that he's been on that for a while because some of the common side effects include muscular wasting and muscular instability and falls and cognitive slowing and fatigue. We've seen that evolve over the last 2 years. And so my suspicion is he's been on androgen deprivation therapy, and they've known about this for a long time. The astonishing thing is that his family and the people around him would even contemplate somebody in that condition should be running for president again.
So if they did find this, and I have a physician who has me regularly check the PSAs, in fact, wants to send me now my paranoid self sees this and says, what else can we do? He's going to send me for an MRI. But the PSA is only so good. Some of them are false positive. Some of them are even false negative. So they may not have caught it that way. But if they did find it and they didn't want to talk about it because he was going to run for re-election in a year or two when they may have found it, they may have hit it because the treatment, as you point out, the androgen, but also some of the other treatments, the radiation as well, is that what it is? That the same thing may cause some sort of cognitive decline, at least temporary, right?
No, not the radiation. The disease itself, if he had an underlying neurological disorder, elderly people with neurological conditions, any medical condition on top of that will cause some degree of decompensation and progression. But no, not specifically. The beam radiation on the specific metastases is designed to alleviate pain. And we've not seen him in pain, so I doubt he's getting that kind of treatment. I hope he's getting contemplated for some of the more fancy, advanced, research-oriented therapeutics that are out there, where we can actually cell by cell direct radio-labeled isotopes at cancer cells, and it's extremely effective. It just doesn't last that long because this is an inexorable and terminal condition. You just do your best to slow it down.
Slow it down, and at his advanced age, it may actually be quite slow. Here's a question, though. Okay, let's just say we know it is. It's stage 3C or maybe even a stage 4, given it's metastasized in the bone.
It's 4.
Stage 4. Okay, so prognosis. And the reason why I'm asking you this is if he passes, right, in the next 3 years, 3.5 years or less, we would have a Kamala Harris as president.
That's right. And it brings up the whole issue of should we have sort of standards or some sort of screening procedures or some sort of evaluative process for our elected officials. The people will say, it's none of your business what somebody's private health care is. Hey, the guy's climbing into the cockpit to drive my plane. I have a right to ask a couple questions about the condition that guy or gal is in. Yes, we do. We actually have an obligation to ask, is the leader of the free world in condition to be piloting the free world? It is a minimum ethical responsibility that be reported to the American people. And they have failed on that across the board and then gaslit us and attacked anybody who raised issues. I think every journalist in the country ought to wake up and think, oh my God, I got played. I've been gaslit. I got to really look at what I've been doing and start doing my job better.
Do you think, and again, would be speculative, but it's very odd. All right, so they denied his cognitive decline for years. We were being mean. We were being elder abused by suggesting it. And now they're coming back tomorrow. Jake Tapper and the guy from Politico, Thompson, are releasing a book about the actual cognitive decline that everyone knew about over the last 2 years of his presidency. My question is the timing of this release of his cancer being the day before the release of the book. Any coincidence there, you think?
Oh, I think it's absolutely. They were going to try to not ever speak about this until he passed away from it. Went, oops, he had an aggressive cancer. He only got it caught, we caught it 6 months ago, but it was too late. They clearly were on that kind of an agenda. And the probability that this was a nodule and then they detected metastatic disease is sort of laughable. So this has been around for a while. They were going to try to temporize and not tell anybody and push it out until this thing took him, which it will in the next 2 to 4 years. And by the way, prostate cancer research is going at an incredible rate. It's possible something will come along that will extend his life 6, 8 years, and he may die of something else first. But in the way things are now, the probability of him going beyond 2, maybe 3 years are pretty low.
There was a soundbite rolling around the internet, and I posted on my Twitter account. In 2022, he was giving a speech outdoors somewhere, I believe it was Ohio, and he said that during his youth he was involved in whatever it was in Delaware, and he said, well, that's why so many of us have cancer. And everyone said, whoa, wait a minute, you have cancer? He said, there was a miss. They cleaned up on aisle 5 the next day and said, no, he misspoke. Is it possible he may have had prostate cancer then? He knew it, and he tried not to tell the world, but accidentally.
My mom was having to put the windshield wipers on to take all the petroleum products off the windshield.
Correct.
And my response to that is, hey, man, you should have been paying attention to food dyes then maybe a little sooner than before RFK Jr. got in there, because that's all petroleum products. If you're saying petroleum products are going to create cancer, you should have been on top of that, sir. But okay. And he announces he has cancer, and people want us to believe it's skin cancer. Basal cell cancer, everybody gets basal cell cancer. People with basal cells and squamous, they don't call themselves cancer patients. You get a cancer in an organ that's dangerous and progressive, you call that a cancer.
Yeah. The treatments, had they been clean, if this, again, assuming that this was a cover-up and they covered up the fact that he was being treated for prostate cancer, that would affect voters, right? You want to know that the guy who's got his finger on the nuclear button, right? He's got his finger on the nukes that are headed wherever, is at least of sound mind. Whether or not you think his vice president is capable of being the president if he passes or not, sometimes these treatments can affect judgment, can they not?
Well, as I said, if he is on androgen deprivation therapy, when I had a prostatectomy 14 years ago, I had radiation about 4 years ago, and when I had some recurrence, I had to have a conversation with my urologist, and I said, look, I don't want androgen deprivation therapy because I've seen it cause not just cognitive slowing and decline, but frank dementia. And I don't want any of that. I don't want anything to affect my brain, because androgen deprivation typically does. And you've seen it. If indeed he's been on for the last 2 years, that would explain him falling asleep. It would explain him wandering off. It would also explain why his Parkinsonism was more severe, because as he loses the muscle mass, falling is a feature of that. But that's all androgen deprivation therapy. The sort of localized treatment of prostate cancer at presentation is usually surgery, which you wouldn't do in an 80-year-old. That's what I had when I was 50, 52 or something like that. or you would do external beam radiation or radium implants, which I suspect he had that. I suspect he did. However, if at the time of presentation it was already out of the capsule or out of the region with distant metastasis, they might have jumped all the way to androgen deprivation therapy. But we don't know what went on. We have no idea. They're gaslighting us. They're obfuscating. And I am tired of this. I really am. I'm at the point where I think if somebody's going to step into the cockpit, I and the American people have a right and an obligation to ask some questions about the person at the wheel.
You know who else I want to know? Before I have this question, very important question. I want to know androgen deprivation. Is this the anti-testosterone treatment that we're talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
I got it. Okay.
And by the way, when they say, "Oh, it looks responsive to hormone therapy," all prostate cancer. I mean, essentially, all is. That's a bizarre thing for them to say. That's another bizarre.
And that in itself may have some effect on someone's cognitive ability, especially if he's 78, 79 at the time. Here's a big question. Question of the day. Where the hell was Dr. Jill Biden during all of this?
Well, two things. A, she has zero biological training, so she would not have any understanding, any experience, any judgment as it pertains to this disease.
Is she a human being, though, Dr. Pinsky? Is she a human freaking being?
But the other side, which is to your point, is I see this all the time in family systems. When there's a patriarch who has something called anosognosia, which is a neurological block of insight. It happens with aging. It happens with cognitive decline. It happens with psychiatric illness and addiction. People don't see what's happening to them. And it's very common for families to gather around that individual and sort of feed into their denial. Like, we don't want to upset him. He's had such a great career. Let's let him believe it. Let's support him. And the family sort of buys into the denial and the anosognosia, and it ends up poorly, ends up bad. I suspect something like that was going on.
Dr. Drew, really good to have you on. And this is Dr. Drew Pinsky and Bolling. It's not the wellness company, which you do a great job with. I really appreciate your time. I'd love to get you back again as the story develops. Dr. Drew, always good having you on, my friend.
Good to see you.
Okay, folks, before we hit a break, I just want to remind you, by the way, that was a great interview. That's some really good information coming out from Dr. Drew Pinsky. I'm going to clip that and put it up on social media. Just want to remind you about speaking of social media, my podcast and YouTube page, both updated daily. By the way, you can hear the show. You'll get that Dr. Drew interview again, but you got to subscribe. Also, we're all over the Diddy trial. The stuff we can't do here for obvious reasons. It's really salacious, really over the line. That can't do it on TV. We're covering it there. Every single day, we're telling you the latest. And let me tell you something. It's mind-boggling how filthy this guy was. Subscribe. All right, we'll be back 2.5 minutes. Wow, looks like a wonderful day there. Looks very nice. And earlier, if you were watching RAV, you saw President Trump and Melania Trump in the Rose Garden signing that bill, the executive order to take it down, bring it into law. Right, the House committee met Sunday night to vote on the president's one big, beautiful bill, which now will move forward to the floor of the House. RAV Chief White House Correspondent Brian Glenn joins us from Pebble Beach to discuss, before we get into this, with the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Brian Glenn, stepping in, as he always does. We had Representative Byron Donalds ready to go, and he got called into the Oval Office, which is right over Brian's left shoulder, and so he had to run when the president calls. You've got to go visit him, but thank you. If it's not going to be Byron Donalds, I'm damn glad it's Brian Glenn. So tell us about it, Brian.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. No, it's great. Yeah, Byron informed me just moments ago that he's been called to go in. So you got to let him go. Obviously someone needs to talk to him, so we let him go inside. But yeah, just a great day here at the White House. Earlier at the Rose Garden, you mentioned top of this hit. The Take It Down Act, crucial legislation in my personal opinion, something that was almost, I can't believe this was not already a federal law. I know in certain states that have been put in legislation, but to make it a federal law in order to protect those. And I talked to a young lady earlier today that's pretty much was the genesis of this legislation, being attacked for, fake AI images of her online, amongst other things, and with really the attempt to get them taken down. And Eric, you and I both know a lot about some of the fake deep images that are on the internet, not only about President Trump. We've seen it about conservatives over the last couple of years. It's really hard to get those things removed, and so this legislation right now, Eric, will put pressure on social media companies. We saw the CEO of X was in the crowd today. We'll put the burden on them and a little bit more responsibility to help them take down these images that could be very destructive. I even talked to one parent, Eric, that lost his son to that stuff. So it's just horrible.
So I didn't mean to cut you off there. Linda Yaccarino, CEO of X, who's very, very, very interested in this. And you're right. What happens is these things, a lot of young people are involved in this, whether it's the AI would Take It Down Act, or we talked to John Rich a little bit. We're going to try and get the interview up probably tomorrow morning, who's involved in another form of this. It's sextortion, where young people are using pictures and videos of each other to extort families and friends of other young people. What they're doing, and kudos to President Trump, because none of this happens without Trump's blessing, right? So what they're doing is they're putting pressure on social media, yada, yada. But the more important thing is they're giving law enforcement the power and the tools. I hope you still have us. I lost them. They're giving law enforcement the power and the tools to go after some of these bad people. Did we lose Brian? Did we lose him?
Yeah, he lost audio.
I think we lost his audio. So that's it. Anyway, so like I said, we're gonna try and get that John Rich interview up. Brian was talking about the Take It Down Act, which they signed in the Rose Garden, very, very big event. And I didn't know this, but Brian Glenn brought to us that Linda Yaccarino was in the crowd talking about that. They're talking about Take It Down being if someone is taking your image or your daughter's image or your son's image and putting an AI kind of sexual context on their face. It makes it look like they're acting out these videos and whatnot. Well, they're going to empower lawmakers to go after not only the social media companies, but the individuals doing it so that they can incarcerate them. They can be punitive damage so they stop doing these things. So two very, very important things. And again, you may not think it's a big deal. So some kids, are messing with each other, but teen suicides are at like record levels, like alarmingly record high levels, and they got to stop it. And a lot of it is because these kids are doing these things to each other as a joke, who knows, to be teens, who knows, or to be horrible people, but the suicide rate is exploding among teens. All right, I do hear we have Brian back. Brian, do we have you? Yeah. There we go. So
yes,
I just wanted to follow up with, you're 100% right that these things end up metastasizing like a cancer in the form of teen suicides.
Yeah. No, it's an awful story, and I spoke with a parent earlier about that, and he ran the legislation in his state of South Carolina and got that through on his freshman year there in South Carolina. And now that, it's a proud moment for him to be in the Rose Garden and have the First Lady and President Trump kind of get this back into legislation. But, it's this day and age that we have right now with all this technology at the fingertips of really someone that can just be tech savvy, and the things that they can do to ruin somebody's life, the sextortion and just putting up other just nasty fake images of people. And a lot of times it's young girls, and it's awful. And you want to think, Eric, that the school systems and any kind of public school that gets involved in something like this would crack down on this is a sense of bullying as well. So hopefully this sets a precedent that it just can't be tolerated.
Oh, they will. When you empower the FBI and the DOJ to go after schools, people, social media platforms, they're going to start to crack down. And Byron Donalds was going to come on and talk about the big, beautiful bill. It's going to go from committee into the full vote. What's the expectation on the vote?
Well, you had four, was it late last night, that decided they'd vote present just to advance everything, and it's going to go through committee, and hopefully we get what it needs to be done. I think at the end of the day, the struggle seems to be on the Medicaid and some of the terminology on that, and I think I want to say the ones that adamantly oppose this right now, the four people that said present, they didn't vote against it, but they didn't vote for it, are not necessarily what you would consider Trump supporters. They have not been a Trump supporter from day one, which I wouldn't maybe lean too hard into that, but it is interesting that people that have known what the president has stood for during the campaign, they know the issues, they know what the bigger goal is to get this thing done, get this legislation done, secure those tax cuts, get all the things that we wanted. No tax on overtime, tips, Social
this
Security,
is big.
all that good
This
stuff.
is big. No tax on overtime and Social Security. People want that, and I saw it's in there. I hope it stays in there when it gets through all their iterations. And then even when it gets to the Senate, it's assuming it passes the House, it gets to the Senate, it stays in there. This whole idea that the left is kind of making hay on this idea that Republicans are pulling money from Medicaid. It's not what it is. It's pulling waste, abuse, and fraud from the, I believe, 1.4 million illegals getting Medicaid and getting other forms of Medicare and Medicaid. And somehow they're spinning into Republicans that are taking money away from grandma. And is that landing on the Republican side of the House?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's something that they're deeply aware of this struggle, because it's really a messaging thing. It really is. And not to change the subject real quickly, but it's very much like the plane that was given to the Defense Department, to the Air Force, rather, from Qatar. And that airplane, of course, the media took that thing as it was a personal gift for President Trump, and then that narrative ran a different way. That's pretty much what the Democrats are doing, and the media, for the most part, with this Medicaid. We're not cutting Medicaid. Yes, we are. Let me correct that. We're cutting from people who shouldn't get it in the first place. How about that? We're making it where if you're physically able to go out and work and be an able, successful, productive person in our society, then you should not just sit at home and get these benefits. So if people are going to say, yes, they're cutting it, but for the cutting it, they're getting rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid. And so the language there can get constructed to be used against us and to make it look like we are. It's a messaging issue, but I hope, Eric, at the end of the day, we can get this thing passed and move on. Because, to be honest with you, Eric, we've talked about this a lot of time. There's dozens of executive orders that come out of the White House behind me that we need to codify into legislation. Okay, those are things that we need to do. If we can't get this big, beautiful bill passed, and we get this done by the end of the week, which I hope we do, going into.
A lot of people are upset that they want more cuts, but listen, those tax cuts are going to help the economy quite a bit. And listen, everyone can't get everything they want, so waste, fraud, and abuse coming out of Medicaid will be a great start with lower taxes, and let the man go do his job, guys. Let Trump go do his job. Brian Glenn, always good having you. Appreciate you jumping in the seat for Donald's. You do a great job, by the way.
Thank you.
Maybe Congress is in your future.
I appreciate it.
We'll talk to you again soon.
No.
I figured. I just thought I'd throw it out there. All right, folks, before we head to break, I want to remind you one more time about that podcast YouTube page, updated daily. Check it out. We're all over the Diddy trial. There's some salacious testimony today. All last week. Today's beginning of week 2. We're going to stay on this every single day. Stuff we can't talk about on regular TV. Sorry. Just go over there, subscribe. We'll let you know everything that's going on, and it's mind-boggling. Maybe even some names being named in Congress and other people in the music industry in Hollywood. We'll get to it. Back in 2.5 minutes. Boston. Mad Dog. Boston.
Yes, sir. Boston.
Boston, right?
Boston.
All right, whatever. Moving on. Well, there's an even bigger cover-up than we have ever imagined. It's massive. And they tried to distract us from the cover-up, and it's backfiring big time on them. There are more questions now, more questions than ever. You see, they tried to make the older questions go away with this new piece of news. If we say he has serious cancer, they'll stop talking about the dementia that he had. If we make it seem like a new discovery and drop it on a Sunday evening, so it's the talk of the news beat on Monday, it will drown out the book, and it will quiet the dementia cover-up. They know that there are a few things that shut people up, like the word cancer. They know that. It's a sympathy vote. It's a scary word. And surely, once they mention that word, we'll stop talking about all of their lies to hide his dementia. But you know what? We've all been lied to so many times, far too many times. There's no trust left. And even the C word can't drown that out. No, there's no trust at all, and I'm about to remind you why that is. CNN clearly got the call Sunday. Get David Axelrod on. that loyal, slimy Democrat deep stater and tee up the sympathy vote for Joe Biden. Quick, Tuesday's almost here. The book's coming out.
His medical condition now, his announced medical condition now, do you believe that silences or delays a lot of conversations about his, last year and a half of his presidency for now?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think those conversations are going to happen, but they should be more muted and set aside for now as he's struggling through this.
See what they did there? See what they did there? Dave Axelrod, Biden's the guy who brought Obama brought Obama to the White House. Should they really be muted? Should the conversations about Biden's state be more muted than they already have? Also, notice how she says, the host says, last year and a half, when the truth is that his state was questionable for far longer than that. Even if we take these people at face value, let's just argue for a moment, and only for a moment, that they only just discovered the cancer, over the weekend, which by all accounts, hundreds of doctors, including Drew Pinsky earlier on this show, accounts say that's simply not true. Can't two things be true at once? Joe Biden struggling with cancer should not detract, might even explain from the massive coordinated cover-up of a man who was unable to carry out the duties of his presidency, and the cover-up by a massive network of top officials, of family, the media. But the truth is they knew. They all knew. They knew years ago. His brother practically admitted it in his statement to the press after Joe dropped out of the race last summer.
I'm incredibly proud of my brother. Selfishly, I will have him back to enjoy whatever time we have left.
Whatever time we have left. They knew, and by the way, Joe Biden knew too. Here he is in July. We talked about this with Pinsky. Watch.
It had to put on their windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer, and why can't for the longest time Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
He told us he had cancer, and they called that a gaffe. And they called us conspiracy theorists for even pointing out what the man said himself. Because the most powerful man in the world, with the top doctors and medicine and testing available to him, slow-growing cancer like prostate cancer, now in its later stages having spread to the bones, Joe has had the cancer for years, according to many doctors. Doctors are saying it, but it doesn't take a genius to figure it out, particularly against the backdrop of lie after lie after lie. Even the folks at MSNBC admit that part.
It's likely to have had this for at least several years.
Oh, more than several years. You don't get prostate cancer.
So I just want to stop you. So this is not speculation. If you have prostate cancer that is spread to the bone, then he's most certainly, you were saying, had it when he was president of the United States.
Oh, yeah.
So then who's answering for it? Fit for duty in February of last year. How exactly is a man who has dementia and prostate cancer fit for duty as the leader of the free world and holder of the nuclear codes? Exactly. So I'll ask it again. How stupid do they think we are? They were almost certain that Biden was their only chance to beat Trump. They knew he was sick, mentally deteriorating, and physically. They knew they had to do everything they could to trick the public for as long as they could to try and get him back into the White House so he could step aside or die once in the office, and Kamala Harris, God help us, would take over the world. This is the D.C. swamp at its worst. Are we surprised at all? Jimmy Carter was practically dead, and they were trotting him out, wheeling him out in a gurney as a Biden vote. In July, Joe Biden could barely make it up the short stairs of Air Force One, they knew. Oh, and the dementia cover-up, the desperate cover-up, a lot of them disgusting, treasonous, I'd say, and the most disgusting and egregious of them all, the members of the cover-up squad, Dr. Jill. And I do this when I say Dr. Jill. I need to know, what was she promised in order to commit one of the most heinous, evil atrocities in this nation's history? She pushed him out there. Her husband, knowing he had cancer and dementia, how can she live with herself after putting on this kind of show?
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts.
right after that debate that he got smoked. Oh, you did such a great job, Joe. How does she live with herself? How do Joy Reid and Jen Psaki live with themselves after covering?
He tripped over I guess there was like a sandbag and Twitter and the right are going crazy.
It's currently dominating Fox News primetime.
It's the most important thing in the world. First of all, Donald Trump is 76. He's not exactly young. And, it's the advance team or whoever's fault that they put a sandbag in front of him. I tripped in my own house. I mean, it's not easy.
Same. It's hilarious to them. Elder abuse, treason, pure evil, an old sick man falling all over the place for the world to see. Look, there are a lot of messages out there, messages of sympathy for the Biden family. I'll leave it to those people. They've all got us covered. I stand by this. Joe Biden has been the same man throughout his political career, a coward, a liar, a bully, a racist. Joe Biden spent the last years of his career calling us garbage. With his aggressive, fist-shaking hatred, he called us fascists. He slandered Trump and his family and Trump supporters as extremists, just as he slandered his opponents his entire career. Joe used his name for money-making and corruption. His whole family did. And then he tried to cover it up using his power once again on the way out. He spent decades spending our tax dollars in the name of sucking up to those who could make him and his family wealthy. He shamed Americans during COVID, lied to us, and destroyed our economy in the process, and he sent the courts and legal system out to persecute and prosecute his political opponent, namely Donald Trump. He's a known plagiarist, and he lied and distorted his past at every turn with a healthy dose of racism mixed in on his way out and since. He's had several chances to redeem himself, even in the slightest. But even though cancer and dementia, he stayed true to his character, filled with propaganda and self-serving narcissism. Dementia doesn't change that, and neither does cancer. And to everyone out there who covered for this guy purely in the name of their Trump derangement syndrome and attempts to hold on to power, you're complicit. You're evil and America hating, and there must be accountability. Shame on every single person who had a hand in this and continues to have a hand in this. The whole thing is crystal clear to us now. The deep state took an old man sick with dementia and cancer and created January 6th to make the right look like insurrectionists and arrest any opponents to a highly questionable election. They weaponized and politicized our agencies and legal system, censored anyone who disagreed with them, called us racist, deplorable, garbage. They created a proverbial civil war in America. The left did it, all in the name of preventing another Trump presidency, and they still couldn't do it. You know, we all now know, and we won't stop proving just how and when. In order to even begin to put America, you broke back, we'll put it back together again. I'm sorry. I am not going to apologize. I feel this way. This time is ending. We'll be back in 2.5 minutes. All right, folks, 5 years have passed, and the Democrats are still idolizing George Floyd. Remember that? This party never moves on. They refuse to leave old obsessions in the past. So here we are in 2025 with segments on George Floyd's impact on American history.
It sparked one of the largest and most diverse protest movements in American history. But 5 years later, the landscape looks very different. In Washington, D.C., Black Lives Matter Plaza, once a powerful symbol of protest and solidarity in response to Floyd's murder, has been removed. Corporate America, which once pledged bold action on racial equality, has scaled back many of the DEI initiatives launched in the wake of protests, though some companies are still quietly continuing those efforts. Now, a new report from the National Urban League takes stock of what's changed and what hasn't in the 5 years since Floyd's death.
I mean, we've moved on, Capehart, Jonathan. Maybe I suggest you do as well. As you all know, the world learned quite a bit about President Biden and his physical state over the weekend. Remarkably, Representative James Clyburn, South Carolina, saw the news, ran to CNN and told the same lie he's been repeating for 4 years, maybe 8 years yet again. Listen to this.
Do you think that Joe Biden really would have been able to perform as president all the way through January 2029 when he would be 86?
Yes, I thought that back then. I still think that. But I don't know that.
Right. Okay. Two things. Clyburn is going to clearly support Biden. He pushed for Biden the first time and the second time, and now Jake Tapper is going to be the voice of reason when it comes to Joe Biden being unsuitable for the United States presidency in 2024. Nice job, Jake. Sell your damn book. Hillary Clinton, who never knows when to shut up, just insulted each and every Republican woman in America. Listen.
What advice do you have for the first female president of the United States?
Well, first of all, don't be a handmaiden to the patriarchy, which kind of eliminates every woman on the other side of the aisle, except for very few. Lisa Murkowski.
Liz Cheney.
Yeah, there's a few. Look, first we have to get there, and it is, obviously so much harder than it should be. If a woman runs who I think would be a good president, as I thought Kamala Harris would be, and as I knew I would be, I will support that woman.
I got some advice. I got some advice for the first female president from Hillary Clinton. Mad Dog, by chance in the world, remember I sent over that tweet of Hillary Clinton saying happy birthday to the first female president, and she put her own picture up. Do you remember that one when she was running for president? If we don't have it, do we have it now? Can we show it?
I don't have it.
All right, after the break, let's do this. Let's talk about this. We'll come back in 2.5 minutes and continue this conversation after the break. Mad Dog, can you come on?
Yes, sir.
This is a live. This is a
It's
live. Dudes are playing guitar in Dublin. It's like 6 hours in front of us, right? 6?
Yeah,
so
I think so,
10
yeah.
o'clock at night, down almost 11 o'clock at night. Yeah, I guess that's cool, right? Hanging out. Looks like fun. I've never been to Dublin. Mad Dog, you been to Dublin? Ireland?
I have never been to Ireland. I really want to go.
You do. That looks like a fun place to stop by if we do go. All right, well, before we go on to the rest of the, we call those rapid reactions. Remember, Hillary Clinton had some advice for the first female president. She went through some nut job stuff about right-wingers and Republicans and whatnot. My advice to her, don't post things like this. Take a look. Don't post a picture of yourself as happy birthday to the future president. Hillary Clinton did that for herself. And that tweet, as they say, didn't age very well. Tampon Timmy Walz had himself a productive weekend. The very failed VP candidate spoke at the University of, I believe, M being Miami. Could be something different, but I'm not positive. We'll take a look when we see what the logos look like in the soundbite ahead. Decided to ruin the students' once-in-a-lifetime memory by politicizing his incoherent speech. Here's a clip.
This is what the crumbling of rule of law looks like in real time. And it's exactly what the founders of this nation feared. A tyrant abusing power to persecute scapegoats and enemies. Look, I get it. There's nervous folks on my side of the aisle. They don't want us to touch any of this. I keep hearing this. Oh, the polling really, it sucks talking about this. It's a distraction from more important issues. Consultants said steer away from talking about this rule of law stuff. But caring about this stuff isn't partisanship or politics. It's patriotism.
You know, I'm going to go ahead and guess I was wrong. Let's go with the University of Minnesota, since he's the governor of Minnesota, and those are the only idiots that would have him talk at their commencement speech. Being as failed as he, does he not realize that no one respects him? He looks like a clown on every stage he steps foot on. But guess what? Tampon Timmy kept going. After making this commencement speech all about himself and his political beliefs, Walz threw a couple of jabs at ICE, calling it modern-day Gestapo. Listen.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. They're in unmarked vans, wearing masks, being shipped off to foreign torture dungeons. No chance to mount a defense, not even a chance to kiss a loved one goodbye, just grabbed up by masked agents, shoved into those vans, and disappeared.
If you're going to use the word Gestapo, maybe you practice it once or twice on your before your big speech. Mad Dog, can you just replay that again when he fumbles over Gestapo? Because you're making a point, right? Right, Tampon Timmy? You're going to make your point. You got to nail a word you're trying to make your point with. Mad Dog, can you re-rack it?
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. They're in unmarked vans, wearing masks, being shipped off to foreign torture dungeons.
We've given him plenty of airtime. Mike Pence, remember him? Get a little chill down my back when I talk about that guy. I once asked President Trump before the 2020 election if he was going to bounce Pence as VP going into 2020. He looked at me and he said, no one's ever asked me that, but no, I'm going to stay with him. I don't know. Mike Pence still somehow getting booked here in the United States in 2025. Unfortunately, he uses every opportunity to double down on being a deranged anti-Trump rhino. Republican in name only. Here he is making a fool out of himself on Meet the Press. Listen.
I honestly think the time has come for President Trump to impose harsh sanctions on Russia and also to increase military support for Ukraine. I think those two messages, making it clear, in combination with the president's good recent dialogue with President Zelensky that took place at the Vatican, and in addition to the new mineral deal, which I think sent a deafening message to Moscow that America and Ukraine are here to stay, I think the time is now for sanctions against Russia, and additional sanctions against Russia, Kristen, and also renewed military support for Ukraine. I think that and only that has the potential to bring Vladimir Putin to the table and achieve a just and lasting peace.
Yay, Mike Pence wants more war. Yay, yay, Mike, war. Yes, let's support every war we possibly can. How much are the defense contractors paying you, Mike Pence?